Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today, Jay Morris, the review guy, and myself have partnered up to talk about heavy metal and its profound and unique impact on our mental health. Or at least, that was intended to be the main goal of this video. It is definitely something we talk about for a majority of the video, but I should note that we did get sidetracked a little bit. We started talking about metal elitism. We started talking about our experiences on YouTube and on the internet. We started talking about Marilyn Manson and Guns N' Roses. And granted, most of it still ties back to the main goal, the main topic, the main focus. But nonetheless, just a heads up, if you're looking for like a really in-depth analysis of what heavy metal has done to our mental health, you're not necessarily going to find it here. At least not 100% gonna find it here. Maybe more like 60, 65, 70% here. To some extent, this shouldn't be shocking. This happens a lot when I do these podcast-style videos. When me and Ty Tilly attempted to review Atramentus, it turned into a 1-hour conversation about the evolution of modern doom metal, so you know, this was inevitable, let's be honest. But hey, we had a great conversation with some pretty great points about mental health, about elitism, and how it all affects heavy metal. And I'm very proud of this conversation, and I'm very proud to share it with you now. And while what I'm about to say should be obvious, I'd nonetheless like to take this time to also warn you that we are diving into some very sensitive territory. We're not necessarily just talking about albums or bands that have impacted our mental health in a positive or negative way. We're getting to the nitty-gritty of this stuff. We talk about suicide. We talk about depression. We talk about gun violence. We talk about sexual assault and harassment. Some of these topics can be genuinely triggering for some people, and if you're one of those people, I would maybe suggest you don't watch this video. I mean, obviously I want you to watch this video because obviously I want you to contribute to this conversation, but I won't make you contribute to this conversation if you're not comfortable with that. So if you're not comfortable with anything we're talking about, please feel free to turn off the video. No harm done, I promise you. The last thing I want is for you to put yourself in dangerous territory. The last thing I want you to do is put yourself in harm's way. Be safe, we love you, enjoy the video. Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we're doing something a little different, a little bit more dramatic, shall we say, considering the subject matter. But first things first, let's introduce special guest who we've talked about having on here for a long time, and now the planets have, the stars have finally fucking aligned. It's Jay Morris, the review guy.
It's finally happened.
It has.
What's up? We've shouted each other out. We've talked about collabing, and the time has. It's Avengers Endgame.
This really is. This is our endgame moment. We've gone back in time. We've got the stones. The gang's all here.
Yeah.
Half the world is on fire. The other half's in lockdown. But at least Jay Morris and the Metal Meltdown got their shit together.
At least one good thing will come out of 2020. Holy shit.
Yeah, right? Unbelievable. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing something a little different. We're not talking about our favorite Baroness records or our favorite fucking thrash records of the year or whatever else you would come to expect from a channel like ours.
We're shitting on the new 6 Feet Under.
Oh, I might still do that, because fuck that album.
Honestly.
No, today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about mental health, heavy metal, and the unique relationship that they share, because whether we want to admit it or not, heavy metal does not exist in a vacuum, and it has mental health impacts, and there's often a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know about.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's a complicated topic because when you touch on anything that's mental health related, you're going to run into the issue of people claiming it's one side or the other, like the age-old debate that rock music, even before metal music, just makes people aggressive. And if you listen to heavy metal music, then you're going to be more aggressive. And I guess just one thing to start that off is, you know, what are your opinions on just that age-old debate of heavy metal makes people more aggressive, heavy metal will make people more inclined to be violent, or just things of that nature?
For me personally, and I should actually note before we go any further, because we're dealing with sensitive subject matter, just be aware. I don't want to. If I
Yeah,
have,
certain things might be mentioned.
yeah, if I unintentionally provoke or offend, I promise you, it's completely unintentional. We're dealing with sensitive subject matter. That's all. But going back to what you said, I don't believe. I believe to some extent that heavy metal can make people aggressive, but in the same way that anything can make people aggressive. I mean, people had wars, people had battles, there was violence long before heavy metal, long before popular music. You know? They weren't listening to Cannibal Corpse in World War II.
Yeah,
It's really
they
that
had their own
simple.
reasons.
But more specifically, there's just nothing scientific that ties heavy metal directly to violence, which isn't to say that there isn't some relationship between the two, not just from lyrics and such. I mean, metalheads can definitely be a very rowdy bunch. I think specifically of riots and fights that have broken out at shows. I've seen fights break out at shows. I remember going to see Cannibal Corpse and Napalm Death back in 2013, and some dude got his head smashed in. But was that because of the music, or was that because of something else? You know, that's a whole other argument. But at the core, no, I don't think heavy metal makes people inherently violent or aggressive, and I don't think it should be used as a scapegoat for when someone fucks up.
Yes, I agree. I think when people are pinned against the wall for being aggressive or just overall violent over heavy metal, I think that more so comes down to, in heavy metal music and just in this community as a whole, a lot of people have been either just saved or heavily impacted or literally made to feel better by the connection that they have towards the music. But on the flip side, because there's so much of a connection between metal music and mental health, potential mental disorders, and just having that state of mind as is, I think it's more so those negative feelings latch onto the aggression in the music and lyrics, which just further accentuate the sort of isolated mindset that some people have. And I think it's more so these people have a predisposition to feel this way in the first place, as opposed to the music sparking something that never existed in the first place. Like, I think these people had a reason to feel that way to begin with, and the music didn't really do anything to alleviate that feeling. It just sort of stoked the flame and added to it. I mean, that's just how I feel about the connection between the two. I was just curious, like, your thoughts of that.
No, you're absolutely correct. When heavy metal is tied to real life violence, we're often dealing with individuals who already had problems.
Yeah.
Last year, 2019, this is a great example. There was a gentleman whose name I can't seem to find right now. Uh, Eric Rommel, his name was, and he burned down 3 historically black churches throughout the southern United States. Why did he do that? Apparently, according to what mainstream media outlets would tell you, he listened to Burzum, and that's what that came down
Was
to.
inspired by Varg.
Yeah. And now,
Yeah.
to be fair, it is totally worth noting that that is absolutely something Varg did. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I can't hold him accountable for something somebody else did. As easy as it would be in this specific scenario, that's just not the right thing to do.
Someone's actions is not written by someone else's opinions. It's uniquely yours. And if someone inspires you to do a heinous act, while the initial inspiration for that should be held accountable in the sense of having those radical beliefs or having those radical opinions to begin with, that does not in any way reflect on the person who carried the act out in the first place. If there's someone that is clearly mentally ill that ends up going out and killing someone, and their idea of that is, oh, I heard in this song a lyric that said "kill everybody."
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that lyric is the thing that should be blamed. I don't think that song or that band or that album should be held accountable for that inspiration. Just going back to sort of like the stoke the flame analogy, there was already something there. The music just tapped into that.
Mm-hmm.
And that could just as easily be any other genre. Because if you look at, say, hip hop, for example, there are dozens, hundreds, probably thousands of hip hop records, albums, artists, bands that have talked about rape, killing, just everything, just every bad thing.
Yeah.
And you could just as easily say that people were more touched by that, especially considering more people consume that medium of music than metal.
I mean, you could even make that argument with country. Quite frankly, I can think of tons of country artists that sing a lot about, well, I've got a shotgun and I'm fucking mad, and you know, it's
But yeah,
the violence is within all music, even within pop
it's an
music. Michael
expression.
Jackson and Prince sang about violence, for fuck's sakes. This isn't new.
Yeah.
This isn't. But it's, you know what it is? It comes down to it being a very easy scapegoat. We don't have to look at the deeper issues surrounding the particular person, and we don't have to look at the deeper issues surrounding the system that allowed him to believe in what he believed. Like when Columbine happened, people were quick to jump on Marilyn Manson because he had a fucking.
I was actually going to bring that up. That's funny.
Mm-hmm. He had a fucking Marilyn Manson poster or some shit, and they were like, "Oh well, obviously it's his fault." But like those kids were fucked up in the head. They were bullied.
Yeah.
They were tormented.
And anyone that does their research on them will understand that listening to a Marilyn Manson song does not lead you to do that.
Yeah.
Because if that was the case, if there was that connection, then more people that listen to Marilyn Manson would do that. More people that listen to Cannibal Corpse would do that.
Absolutely.
These are very case studies.
One of the first albums I ever bought with my own money was Mechanical Animals. I promise you I have never had the urge to shoot up a school. Never.
Yeah.
It really, like, and even Manson, this was something Manson was even aware of in the movie Bowling for Columbine. You know, Michael Moore asked him.
I watched that recently where he talked about it. He was so intelligent about the way he put forward his opinion, and just, I don't blame him for seeming frustrated about it, but he also seemed just genuinely damaged, because fair. I mean, if you have people claiming that because of your music, your artistic vision and, you know, expression, that you're made to believe by the mainstream media and everyone, and your image is now associated with this extreme act of just violence and terror. I mean, I imagine that would fuck with you. Like,
it visibly, you can see it. I mean, he kind of disappeared from the spotlight for a while, especially after that movie, even though everything he said in that thing was right. I mean, he said at the end of his interview with Michael Moore, Michael Moore asked him, what would you say to the kids if you had the chance to say anything? And he said, I wouldn't say a thing. I'd let them talk. I'd listen to them because no one else listened to them.
Yeah, that's one thing that I remember a lot of people picking out, and it's such an easy sentiment, and I think that people that want to write it off, or people that want to detract from the general psychological impact that mental disorders can have on someone, it's easy to just say, just let them speak, just let them listen, but I feel like a lot of people don't act on that.
No.
And the stigmatisms that just people with mental disorders face, just time and time again, you see these just really fucked up people that do fucked up things having so much wrong with them and never being able to say that, or being harassed, being bullied, being abused. And it's not just someone waking up one day and saying, I'm going to shoot up a school. Like, that's not where their thought process begins. The roots go back so far back. I saw a TED Talk once of this man, had a family, kids, and he, when he was younger, had a gun and literally planned on either shooting up a mall or a school. And his whole story was basically about how his one friend just treating him like a human being is the only thing that prevented him from that. And I just feel like if more people gave them the time of the day, tried to get them psychiatric help, tried to get medication or therapy or just something, having that intervention point could save so many of these things from happening.
And that's probably the most terrifying thing about it all, honestly, is that a simple action can make the difference. You know? It has nothing to do with the music. And granted, there are some artists that I would argue are inherently more dangerous than others. I, you know, I think I would have a lot of questions for someone who, like, would avidly defend Burzum than I would for someone who would avidly defend Marilyn Manson. But at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
they're still adults. Like, I'm not going to if a buddy of mine shoots up a school tomorrow, I'm not going to talk to Marilyn Manson. I'm going to talk to my buddy.
Yeah.
I want to know what the
I'm
hell
literally
happened.
gonna say what happened. Yeah. Like what happened? What led you to that point? And I feel like you should be able to separate the art from the artist in the sense of if your ideology and your mental state is so shattered and so frail to begin with that it's that easy to sway you, then I think you really need to examine yourself as a whole and what led you to that point. Because I mean, like you said, there are certainly bands that are put you in more of a mindset that feel more esoteric and feel more dangerous, violent, or might put you in the mindset of just sort of that dark evil feeling. Like if you listen to, like I don't know, like early Dark Throne or Mayhem or Emperor or something, some band that just puts you in a mind state of just like fuck the world, or like Nails or something,
Mm-hmm.
just something like that.
I feel that. I mean, and that's also maybe the beautiful thing about heavy metal and its relationship about the beautiful thing about heavy metal and its relationship with our mental health is that yes, there, all this bad shit happens, but it can be a legitimate tool. It can be legitimate catharsis. The first time I ever listened to Napalm Death, it was this powerful experience for me. I felt for the first time in a long time that someone heard me. The aggression and the anger that I had felt for years had finally been channeled into something that was safe, into something that wouldn't hurt anyone and didn't hurt myself.
That was a healthy way to take out that aggression that you felt. And Napalm Death's a great band to start with. I mean, for every Columbine that blames Marilyn Manson, there are hundreds of comments you can find on a variety of heavy metal genres and videos of people saying, this saved me, this helped me, this got me through rough times. And, I mean, you can't go to the most recent, I'm not saying that there's not good artists in that genre, there certainly are, but you can't find that many people that are listening to the newest, I've got so many hoes and stacks of cash rapper people saying, oh, this got me through a rough night. Like,
I feel
you can't
that.
really, I'm sure that there are people that genuinely help them through, but I feel like there are far more people that have connected. I mean, metal in general is like a brother and sisterhood. Like we help each other through shit. That's what we do. And yeah, there are bad apples and dicks, but at the end of the day, this is an art form that genuinely saves people. I really believe that.
Mm-hmm. And this is a genre that I would argue more than other genres brings people together and encourages bringing people together. I mean, contrary to what a lot of people would like to believe, look, I have my political values, I will always stick to them, but contrary to popular belief, I don't hate Republicans, I don't hate people who voted for Trump. Please join the Metal Meltdown. Let's. At the end of the day, it's metal that connects us, and while we may not always agree, I will always try to respect where you come from because we still have this in common, and this is still so important to us.
Yeah, you shouldn't gatekeep someone for their ideology. I mean, unless I think I mentioned this in a recent video, like the poser culture one, you shouldn't, unless someone is like avidly going around with like a swastika saying Hitler was right and
Yeah,
like listening to NSBM. Like I don't
yeah,
someone listening
that's
to black metal when you don't
yeah,
like it, like that, you know,
yeah.
that shouldn't prevent you
That
from
that that
being
right
their
there
friend.
is literally the exception, where it's just like, all right, dude, you need to piss off.
Yeah, like if someone's literally openly harming other people or spreading some sort of thing like that, but I mean, I feel like it's a very shallow thing to write someone off entirely for saying, yeah, I kind of agree more with Trump than Biden, or I support Trump. Like, are you really going to just annex their
No,
entire musical identity and say, you aren't allowed to watch my content, I don't want you here, I don't want you part of this community? Like,
even if
isn't
I,
that how America got to
mhm.
this point in the first place?
even if I
I still
legitimately
hate it.
wanted, even if I legitimately wanted to do that, it's not that simple 70 million people voted for Trump regardless of whether or not he lost the election, which is a whole other issue that I don't want to get into. I can't just
that's a
ignore
rabbit hole.
70 million people. You know, I before COVID,
They had their reasons.
yeah, I traveled through America extensively all throughout before COVID. I've been all through Tennessee, Nevada, Florida, North and South Carolina. It's Pigeon Forge, Tennessee is like my second home, if we're being fully honest.
Yeah.
That's a
Well, that
town
place
that
I've went
voted
on
for
vacation
Trump.
there
Am I
quite a few
suddenly
times.
going to dump them? Like, no, it's not that simple.
No, because I feel like there's a stereotype of how people, and I honestly think this ties into the overall mental health thing. Is I think people like to pigeonhole this group's this way, this group's that way, that group's this way. But if you just sit down and talk to people that support Biden or support Trump, just like metalheads, they're all walks of life, all colors, all sexualities, all identities. Like
Mm-hmm.
they do not just fit. I think when people think of Biden supporters, they think of uppity people, and when they think of Trump, they think of a bunch of rednecks. But it doesn't work that way. And the same thing goes for like this overall topic about like metalheads, mental health. Like when I've went to quite a few shows, and like for example, a couple years back, I saw Slayer on their farewell tour with it was Amon Amarth, Cannibal Corpse, and I believe it was In Flames. And just you look around and it's just man, woman, black, white, yellow, just everything, just
Mm-hmm.
all heights, all ages, old, young. There was something that tied it all together, and that's something that I feel like people glaze over because it's so much easier, like you said, to use it as a scapegoat, and for the media to just be like, metal's aggressive, metal's evil.
Oh yeah.
That's the easy narrative.
It's almost as easy as fast food and video games. Just blame that instead of addressing the real problems. Instead of addressing, going back to Columbine, no one bothered to talk about how these kids were bullied. No one bothered to talk about the fact that these kids, for whatever reason, had access to guns. No one wanted to talk about the fact that these kids were going through shit, and they were probably going to do something long before Marilyn Manson ever popped up.
Yeah, they already had the thing there. It's just Marilyn Manson, like, was probably playing while they were sitting there devising and being like, "Hey,
Oh yeah,
man, like, we
it
should do something. We should strike back."
it
Like,
could have been an episode of the Muppets. Would we have blamed Kermit the Frog?
yeah, yeah. Are we like exactly like it's so idiotic when you put it in that context and when you think of it in that light. Like it, if you have if you're sitting there in a room and you have like three people that are planning on like kidnapping someone, if Garth Brooks is playing in the background on like a stereo system, are we going to say that Garth Brooks inspires kidnappings?
No,
And it
absolutely
isn't
not.
that easy though. I mean, it's not that easy to just say that though, because when you look at it, I can see why people, to play devil's advocate, might say that metal is that way because comparatively speaking, there is much more of a lyrical focus on aggression. The music itself is produced in a much more heavy way that puts you in that mindset. So I can understand where people are coming from, but it's just not that simple, and it should be looked at and examined much deeper than that.
I think in a lot of those instances, it's important to look closer at the artist rather than the music that they're putting out. Cannibal Corpse is a great example. I've met George Fisher a couple times. He writes
Fucking
about
amazing, dude.
he is, and I mean this sincerely, a fucking cinnamon roll. What a sweet, gentle human being.
He's amazing. Like I've watched so many interviews with him, and he's just the amount of just metal frontmen that put on this persona being so aggressive and so like Johan Hegg of Amon Amarth, Barney Greenway of Napalm Death, Corpse Grinder. Like these are just really nice people,
Oh,
like with
they're
genuine morals and values.
some of the nicest people I've ever met. I mean, Trevor Strand from the Black Dahlia Murder, one of the biggest names in death metal right now. I had the
Yeah,
pleasure of interviewing him back in March.
great interview
An
by him.
absolute sweetheart. We literally just after the interview, we literally just nerded out and started talking about like Mega Man and shit and Castlevania. Like it was
Oh yeah.
like he had no obligation to do that. It was just like, oh man, you mentioned this thing and that was cool. Let's fucking talk about this now.
Yeah,
Luke
there's
LeMay
just
from
so many
Gorguts.
frontmen.
So many. It goes on and on.
Like Matt from Matt Heafy from Trivium.
What a
Like,
nice guy.
just
I don't even really like Trivium's music, but I would love to
yeah.
sit down and have a beer with Matt.
I was about to say Matt's just. I've watched Matt. I could listen to Matt talk for hours. Like he's just such a philosophical dude. Like it's incredible.
Hmm.
And like you said, the list just goes on of frontmen that are just genuinely good people.
Mm.
Like, and even if you look at like even if you go to if you want to take it to the extreme and be like black metal's evil. Yes, there are certainly bands that abide by that and have that ideology, but looking at one interview with someone like Gall, I mean, like, once again, people like to pigeonhole groups into certain things. Gall is a gay man, and yet people think black metal is like, people love Gall.
Mm-hmm.
People really enjoy Gall's music and Gall's word and just his output. And one interview, once again, he's just nice.
I feel like
and black metal is considered to be the most extreme, it's just crazy.
I feel like this like modern wave of black metal especially is a lot more inclusive and patient than we want to give it
You're
credit
talking
for.
about like the black gaze movement?
Oh, just modern black metal in general, like whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
Look
like
at bands like Death Heaven. They're great guys. The guys in Imperial Triumphant are fucking fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've had the chance to talk to some. They're awesome.
Oh, they're fantastic guys, and they're all like they donate to charity and they do charity streams and they do really cool things for their fans, and I'm more concerned about that stuff, and that's where I take issue. I guess at this point we're picking on Varg Vikernes, but that's where I take issue with Varg. It has nothing to do with his music. I could give a shit. I don't give a shit about that. He's just a crappy human being.
Yeah, I just don't agree with Varg's beliefs, and which is another topic entirely, but just while it is important to separate art from artist as much as possible if it's just about harmless beliefs, like say, I support this candidate, you don't, like that type of belief. But I won't lie, I genuinely have had trouble going back through Burzum's discography knowing the person that made it. It's difficult for me to appreciate his music, knowing what he's done, knowing what he said, knowing his beliefs, and it's difficult, especially. And it's not even just that. It's like I forget the name of the record. Hold up. It's like when he injects his beliefs into his music, that's where it kind of becomes iffy.
Yeah.
Like some of his releases in the 2000s and 2010s had those beliefs within them, so it kind of makes it really difficult. It was Fallen. That's the record I was thinking of. Like that, I remember Anthony Fantano reviewing that and just sweeping under the rug the beliefs, and I'm like, can you really do that?
That was actually shocking to watch him do that, because he is an incredibly progressive and socially and politically active person on YouTube.
Absolutely.
I find it incredibly surprising. I mean, I even remember that video. It blows my mind that he was just able to be like, yeah, it's cool black metal, whatever. I don't even remember what he gave it.
Yeah, and he even mentioned it. He was literally like, I don't agree with the ideology, but I'm just gonna ignore it for the sake of music. I mean, and it's weird because he's kind of split in the terms of with that, he just swept it under the rug. But once the shit came out about Despel Omega, he just completely dropped the review of the Furnaces of Palingesia. Like, he just completely dropped that review, and he was like, I think that got like an 8. Like, he really liked that record.
Mm-hmm.
But he removed the review, like, the day after once it came out, because people were like, shit's going down with the band.
Yeah, I remember that too. I don't remember listening to that album, because I don't remember ever being a fan of them. But that's a whole other thing. But I remember when that whole scandal, I guess, broke out, and I guess to his somewhat credit, he was younger in 2011 when Fallen came out. Things change, people change, the kind of content you want to put out, it changes. For myself this year,
there was also the chance he was just uneducated about it.
Mm-hmm. Like this year, for just me, for myself speaking, the type of content I make now is leaps ahead of what I made last year. I feel
Yeah.
I have matured incredibly.
That's why you've gained more and more traction. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not making. I mean, hey, I still keep the videos up because I do inherently kind of like pissing people off, but I don't post 20-minute videos about how much I fucking hate Brian Posehn or Lorna Shore or whoever, because I don't want to be that person. I may not agree with what those bands do or what they say or what they make, but I'm not going to gain anything from fucking throwing myself out there and compromising my mental health, driving myself fucking insane on the internet.
Yeah. It all ties back into just, you know, positivity over negativity
Mm-hmm.
and spreading that in the best way you can. It just makes it easier to connect with, and I think as a whole, at the end of the day, I mean, it depends on the person, but I would like to think at the end of the day, people would rather watch someone that is, you know, being critical and if necessary, but not just being consistently negative. I think that's something that can turn a lot of people off. If just every video is just 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5, this person sucks, fuck that person. Like, I just feel like that eventually would be like, that would be the reputation you gained. If
Mm-hmm.
that was all you ever did, like, you would be the negative guy.
And I don't want to
Like,
do that. I don't. I want to create conversation about metal, not just the genre itself. I could care less how fucking heavy the riffs are. I want to talk about songwriting. I want to talk about production value. I want to talk about what an artist is bringing to the table. That's why, even when I do a really negative review, I'll try and say something at least semi-positive, or I'll say something along the lines of, hey, if you've liked previous records, maybe this is for you. Or maybe if you've enjoyed this type of record, maybe this is for you.
exactly. Like, at the end of the day, I've two things. Like, number one, I've always mentioned my opinion means nothing. Don't take it as the holy gospel. The only thing that I want to do is spread opinions and maybe get people thinking and just start a conversation about something in particular. And also, with just music in general and metal in general, I think there's always something to be said about, and this is why I'll usually end videos with that, is if you like this type of thing, if this is the type of thing that you would get something out of, if you've been a fan of this band in the past, or if what I've said has intrigued you in some way, your opinion might deviate, and let me know if it does. Like, I don't want people to just be like in an echo chamber and be a yes man. If someone agrees or disagrees with something I agree or disagree with, I want that conversation to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Things connect with people in different ways. What I think of Napalm Death might be different from what you think of Napalm Death, or Gorguts, or Iron Maiden, or Metallica, or whoever.
all those bands are good.
I mean, yeah, they are great, but maybe, let's say purely hypothetically, you're just like, oh man, fuck Iron Maiden. I'd be disappointed, but I'm not gonna like berate
Yeah.
you or bully you
fair.
or anything
It's
like that.
difficult to trust people that don't like Maiden. I can more so understand why someone might not like Napalm Death, but like, come on.
Iron
It's like
Maiden's,
saying,
Iron Maiden's
I
pretty
just,
great.
I just don't understand the hype with Judas Priest. Like, I just
Yeah.
cannot trust them.
Hey, they're doing something right because they've been around for 50 years. I'm just gonna say that.
And they just keep coming out with records to just reinvent. Holy shit,
Oh,
firepower.
they've gone from fucking like straight up classic dad rock to heavy metal to being kind of accidental poster boys for No Album, and then they did thrash metal. They arguably did power metal on Painkiller, or I don't know, also arguably melodic death metal, considering how fierce some of those vocals were. They did a concept album. Firepower was just a great record altogether. Like,
It's just impressive that their fan base follows them. I think any band that's able to, swap around their styles and just still have people enjoying them, that's a testament to songwriting. Because at the end of the day, if your songwriting connects, it connects. It doesn't matter what style you're in.
and that's a testament to the power of Judas Priest and how they've connected with people, because they are pretty much the first metal band, and that's not to discredit Black Sabbath, Deep Purple,
Black
anyone
Sabbath,
else.
yeah.
But when we think
That's it.
like heavy metal, the image, the sound, the presentation, that all came from Judas Priest.
Yeah. It's Priest or Maiden. If you were to ask someone like what was the first metal band, they'd say either Sabbath, Priest, or Maiden. Most likely Priest or Maiden. And like, because for some reason those are the bands that people think about. Because I feel like a lot of people, even though, like, if you're a metalhead, you obviously know the roots of it. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't immediately think Black Sabbath is metal.
No,
Like, in their early days, like, I feel like if you listen to their music, yes, they were such a huge inspiration for specifically like doom metal and sludge metal and just varieties of the slower types of heavy metal music. I feel like the average person that listens to that is just gonna think it's rock,
yeah,
because so
music.
much of like initial early metal felt a lot like rock because it was rooted in hard rock and blues rock and things like that. So when you had bands like Maiden and Priest that were turning up the intensity, turning up just the high octane performances, it took it to a new level. So I definitely agree that like those two bands are the ones that really kick-started that movement as a whole.
And they still emotionally connect with people to this day. I mean, I remember going to see Iron Maiden a few years back with my girlfriend, and when they were playing Number of the Beast, half the crowd is cheering. I noticed a couple tears, to be honest.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Like it was just really
Being
connecting
there,
with people because like people were just like, I remember buying this record when I was a kid. This was the album. This was the song that introduced me to this genre that I am this brotherhood, as we put it before, sisterhood that we are a part of.
yeah, I actually got the chance to on Slayer's farewell tour. I actually got to see the show with my dad, who had grown up with Slayer and grown up with like the big four, and just being able to experience that just on their final tour, like especially right before all this, the pandemic and all of that. Like, it was just, when you have such an emotional connection to that music, seeing that finally can just really strike a chord in you, because it's one of those things like, past that point, it's just headphones and earbuds. It's just a CD. It's just a vinyl. It's just a streaming platform. But when you're genuinely there feeling just the vibrations in your chest and head, and just hearing it live and seeing the band performing it and seeing the energy and being involved in that, it's another feeling entirely.
It's
Like,
moving.
there's nothing that can be compared,
Are
whether it's a
are
big show or a small show in a bar.
are there any bands that have impacted your mental health in a very positive way? Since we're kind
Oh,
of on that topic.
absolutely, absolutely. Just for absolutely. Like, there's been plenty of bands that, for whatever reason, have just specifically helped me through rough times, and not only because of lyricism, but just because I either discovered them or connected with them at a time that I needed them a lot. There was a period where a lot of older prog bands were something that, just for whatever reason, just really um, helped me through some rough times. Like, bands like Jethro Tull, Dream Theater, like, just for whatever reason, just were really helping me at the time. And if we're talking like recent bands or recent artists that just genuinely helped me through some times, I'm going to be completely honest, for how, cringy or cheesy it sounds, because I know that for whatever reason it's still so popular to help them. I'll just say it: Bring Me the Horizon. Like, at a time, for whatever reason, that was linked to the time that I was going through a lot of shit, and sort of like you said earlier, just having that positive way to take that out was just powerful, to say the least. And just having the connection to a lot of the classic bands and putting a lot of my feelings into loving the material, collecting the material. Another band would be Cattle Decapitation, sort of like Napalm Death, in the sense of, they were putting all of my thoughts of how I felt about just people at the time. And when I discovered like Anthropocene and Monolith, that was just kind of like, this just makes sense. Like, it makes complete sense.
Yeah,
And
those
I
are
would say those would be some.
those are some aggressive records for sure.
Yeah.
I think
Just
in
the lyrics, when you
general,
look into them. Like, it
I,
might just sound like, but it has, I swear it has lyrics.
yeah, I promise it's more than just or whatever.
Yeah, I promise it's more than Travis Ryan. Don't know if you've seen the recording process of putting water in his mouth and spitting it out as he's growling.
Oh,
Like,
really?
I promise.
Oh, that
Yeah,
explains a
he
lot.
has the coolest ways of creating sounds. Like that. That's literally why he just sounds like a freak half the time. Like he's so unique. I mean,
That explains a lot, honestly.
yeah. I mean, he literally was sitting in the studio on the floor with a towel on the ground, pouring water into his mouth and doing like pig squeals.
I remember
That's
when
an image.
I remember when that came out, because I think at first I was kind of iffy towards it, because while I was familiar with Napalm Death and Carcass, a lot of other extreme and grindcore was kind of just like, I don't know. But I remember I had a buddy, Luca, and he was all into that thing. And I think he would probably say the same thing if I had to ask him about the impact of that album. Like that, he has told me before that album pretty much single-handedly made him love death metal and
We
extreme
talking
music.
about Monolith or Anthropocene?
Oh, Monolith. My apologies.
Oh, fair. Yeah, no, you're good. Cattle Decapitation's lyrics are just on another level in terms of the way they approach just humanity. Like
Yeah.
there's so few bands that can capture that feeling. Like there are so many bands that talk about how bad they hate the human race, but there's just something about the way Cattle Decapitation presents that just feels so genuine.
It's so eloquent yet so blunt at the same time. Like they can have some analogy about how the earth is dying and it's all mankind's fault, and you know, the reek shall inherit the earth and whatever the fuck, but then the next minute they can go, yeah, we just suck and fuck you.
Yeah, like Death Atlas. I mean, love the cover art of that. I mean, it's literally Cataclysm, the end of the world, as the Grim Reaper with no robe on and a scythe, trying to light up the world with a lantern and shouldering, like Atlas, a burning earth. That's an image.
Yeah, I can't begin to tell you. I mean, I can't tell if Bring Back the Plague has aged really well or really fucking badly in the last year.
Fair. Yeah, Death Atlas in general, just as a whole, the album as a whole, is so centered around just Fallout. It's so funny.
I remember in my official review, I literally said, this album is forecasting the sonic and literal apocalypse. I didn't realize a year later how true that statement would be.
You fucking cursed us, Robert.
I think me and Cattle Decapitation accidentally cast a curse upon the earth.
That's a mental health thing. If you need someone to blame Robert.
Yeah, I'll take the heat. I'll take the heat, man.
They gave us the pandemic.
But it's funny that we're now really getting into the pandemic, because there are records that have just helped me get through this.
Hell yeah.
I've been in and out of work for the last couple of months. Before COVID, I worked for Jamie Oliver in Square One at I worked for the celebrity chef, and then once everything went into lockdown, my job was compromised, and they very quietly shut everything down, and as far as I know, that restaurant doesn't exist anymore. So I got a job at a shitty fucking bar. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to have a job, don't get me wrong, but I went from fine dining, working with, again, a celebrity fucking chef, to basically making chicken wings and fucking cheeseburgers, and that hurt me. And it also hurt me sitting around at home for a bunch of months and not really having much to do. I'm very lucky
that cabin fever feeling. That cabin fever feeling. Like,
exactly.
You don't know what you have until you don't have it anymore. You take it for granted, just going outside.
And music became so much more of an outlet, and I think that's part of why not to go too off topic, but that's also part of why the Metal Meltdown has changed so much in this last year, because I've been at home and I've done a lot more introspective thinking, and I've really thought about what I want the channel to be. But going back to music, Underneath from Code Orange specifically has been like the soundtrack to the apocalypse for me.
Yeah, it's just so industrial and so heavy. Like that I saw a comment on, I believe, Anthony Fantano's most recent video. He did a review of Undeath, I believe. Of someone just saying, for all it's worth, 2020 might be shit, but it's been a great year for music, and I
Oh my
agree with that.
god, it
Like, there's been
has.
so many great records.
So many great records that intentionally or not have tapped into the chaos of 2020 and have been
Yeah.
so much more powerful because of it. Code Orange again, Protest the Hero, Imperial Triumphant, Atramentis, Orensi Pazuzu.
Ranzi Pazuzu.
The list goes on, and I was kind of iffy towards that album at first. Now it's probably one of my favorite albums of the year.
Which one?
Orensi Pazuzu.
Oh yeah, Mester and Kinsey. That's a wonderful record.
Oh, it's
I
absolutely
feel like
fantastic.
the atmosphere just fits so well. Have you heard there was a grind/noise record that I feel like just really struck a chord by Worm. Did you by chance hear the Worm record, Colony
Oh my
Collapse?
god, yes, I reviewed that. That was a
Things like
great
that.
record.
Oh yeah, and like the internal rot record, I know a lot of people really stoked about
Mm-hmm.
because it just also, I don't know, like
So
there's just so many records this year.
I mean it's been not even just for metal. I mean hip hop as well. Visions of Bodies Being Burned, clipping is like a big one for me right
Yeah.
now. Run the
Fiona
Jewels.
Apple record.
Mm-hmm. So many records that have, and I think that's kind of a fascinating thing. Again, I totally recognize that most of it's not intentional. It isn't. It's just a matter of timing. But how much music that has been about mental health and has also tapped into our own mental anguish.
Yeah, it's just I think, and kind of in a way that ties in really well with just the initial thing about mental health is when you're put in a state where you're vulnerable emotionally about something, that's when it's the easiest to be affected. And like you said, records that are not even related to the pandemic, not even related to any of what's going on, still strikes a chord because you already have that feeling inside of you as a result of the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. So it just, I feel like that ties in well of saying, like, it's that easy when you're put in a bad situation.
The outlet just becomes so much more powerful. And
Yeah.
with
And
Code Orange,
can do it.
with Code Orange especially, that album for me, that came out literally at the beginning of the lockdown here in Ontario. So for me, like that album came out, and I didn't have a job, so I was already in a bad spot, and that album it just grabbed a hold of me. And I guess going back, like in general, like records that have impacted me mentally in a good way, Napalm Death again. But I think more specifically as a teenager, before I was really even into a lot of heavy metal, one of the albums that really stands out for me, and I might be in the minority here, but so be it, Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. This album channeled a rage, an authenticity, a grittiness. It didn't sound like any other rock that I was hearing at the time. It wasn't some like super fucking processed alternative rock. It was a bunch of fucking street punks, drunk and high out of their fucking minds, making crazy, loud, in-your-face music. And it was sexy, it was gritty, they could hang with the glam boys, and they could hang with the thrash boys as well. And it just felt so fucking real to me, because I was a street punk. I was a no-good little fucking brat doing all kinds of stupid shit.
Yeah. It's that was right around the time when, like you said, you were getting fairly close to, you know, grunge and alt music, and it just that divergent period. And the 80s was so consumed by, you know, really overly produced radio rock and like thrash metal.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just some hair metal, just really cheesy, corny, radio friendly like hair metal. And while Guns N' Roses, like Sweet Child of Mine, like there were certainly tracks that got radio play and had radio play, or Welcome to the Jungle, but you know, there were deep cuts that were very heavy in comparison to other contemporary bands, just in the way they were constructed.
Like, they were just heavy enough for the thrashers and for the punk fans, but they were just catchy and accessible enough for more mainstream listeners, and especially for fans of the glam metal scene that was big at that time. Like, it was normal to have Guns N' Roses on a bill with Poison, and then the next day they're playing with Motorhead and Metallica.
Yeah, and I think that's something to take away from accessibility, is so many of the bands that break through from metal and just rock music in general usually are, comparatively speaking, heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Like Metallica was very heavy when they started to break through. And even if you look at like the bands that stuck out of the grunge scene, there were plenty of really accessible alternative rock bands, but which ones were the ones that stuck out?
Oh.
Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, they were really heavy, just low, gritty sounding bands. And I think
and Nirvana is actually kind of a great example of everything we're talking about. This was a band that was very transparent and open about how they felt, more so than Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. Like,
and Kurt Cobain was a generational thing.
Mm-hmm. Kurt Cobain was a very damaged individual.
He didn't want the fame. He never wanted it, and once he got it, he wasn't the same.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put on all this shit that happened with Courtney, like, you can't. It was a very complicated situation. People that just say, "Oh, Kurt Cobain was depressed, so he killed himself." Like, it's so much more complicated than that.
And it is such a disservice to people who have mental illness to simply brush it off as that.
Yeah,
it's not as simple as that. Like, I don't think it's unfair to say that some people have thought about that at some point in their life. I really don't.
Yeah.
And
I would like to think that the vast majority of people that have lived a while, at some point in their life, have felt low enough to think, is this worth it anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like we've all reached that point where, like, you ask yourself, is it worth it to keep going on? What am I here for? What is the purpose of this? And anyone that says they're not are just trying to put on a stiff upper lip.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are moments where you're just so low that you literally ask yourself, what's the fucking point? Like,
and that's where Nirvana, they managed to tap into that. Kurt Cobain obviously unfortunately gave into it, but they were also able to tap into that for a lot of people, and they gave people that outlet, you know.
Yeah. Same could be said about like Linkin Park and Chester.
Oh, definitely.
Chester.
I mean, that Hybrid Theory is a record that continues to connect with people to this day. We can call it edgy.
It still sells tens of thousands of copies each year.
One of the biggest rock albums of this era, without a doubt.
Yeah. Linkin Park in general, I would go so far as to say that if we're talking 2000s, very few bands have had the same impact on rock and metal music as Linkin Park did.
No, you're absolutely right.
The amount of bands all across genres that say, I was inspired by Linkin Park. Bands that are in just completely separate genres.
They have the range and influence of bands, even though they haven't been around as long, they have the same range and influence of bands like Iron Maiden and Metallica.
Yeah, it just for this generation of people. And I think one major issue with today's generation with how we approach mental health is we're simultaneously really good and really bad. We're really good in the sense of, more so than ever, people are encouraged to be open to talk about their feelings, talk about how they're feeling. But at the same time, there's this narrative that's really never been done before of edginess. You're being edgy. You're too edgy. Yeah. And I feel like that term gets thrown. I feel like that's sort of comparable to how before edgy started being thrown around, how if you were in any way honest about your emotions, you're emo. Like, yes. I feel like that's kind of the same comparable thing about, like, how if you talk about things, oh, you're just being emo. Oh, you're just being an edgelord. Exactly. And I think that just kind of adds to the flame of that isolated feeling of, like, well, if these people are going to treat me this way and judge me this way, then I'm just not going to talk about it. And unfortunately, that's what leads to cases like Chris Cornell, like Chester Bennington, like Kurt Cobain.
And I think, as far as the people who say that stuff, I think on some level it's because they themselves are uncomfortable with these feelings for whatever reason. Maybe it's...
They don't want to face it themselves. They probably feel the same thing and just don't want to look it in the eye.
No, they don't. And it's easier for them to beat someone down than it is for them to admit that they might have a problem. And whatever the reason, maybe it's like toxic masculinity or issues at home, whatever the case may be, they're more comfortable to just tell you that you're overly...
issue. Could be a pride issue.
Yeah.
Damaged pride.
Like, I remember when I reviewed the Lingua Ignota record last year, there were a lot of comments of people reaching out and talking about how Lingua Ignota had touched them on such a deeply personal level.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And I myself, I mean, I won't say the person's name because I don't think I should, but I know people who have dealt with sexual assault, harassment, abuse, rape, and I I knew, and as a result, I couldn't help but think about the things they had told me in confidence when listening to that record, and it
Yeah,
hit
that
me.
experience, because that place came from like a place of sexual assault and abuse, and like you said, like I have people very close to me that have dealt with sexual assault and have dealt with just physical and mental abuse. And if you go into that thinking, oh, that's just edgy, you are writing off millions
No,
of people throughout history that have gone through similar things, and you can't know how those people feel in their head, or what they tie to that, or the trauma or PTSD that they have associated with those negative feelings and those negative traumatic experiences.
mm-hmm.
Like it's and that gets put into music, and like you said, people reaching out in such a positive way,
But
just
on that
putting
same note,
experiences there can help people.
but on that same note, in that same comment section, there were plenty of people that were just like, "Whatever, man. This isn't even metal. What is this? This is edgy
Yeah,
bullshit."
screaming
Yeah, she's
music,
just screaming. Whatever. I'm like,
screaming
man,
over pianos. Why are you reviewing this?
like it was, and I remember naming that my album of the year. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I said this is my favorite album of the year, metal or not. And people were like, "Well, it's not metal." It's like, okay, well, you didn't listen to what I said then, metal or not. Like that's
Yeah,
all it really.
it's
It's
your
not even.
opinion. You don't have to have a reason to have your opinion. You can just put that forward, and if people disagree, like my record of the year that's probably going to top my list is a record that, while it is metal, has just about 5 or 6 different influences going into it, and I had people being like, "What the hell do you mean? Like, why?" But like that's just how I feel about a record.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
But these people just can't accept the fact that we've connected this with these records, and they want to try and tear us down because of it, for whatever,
because they
again,
have
whatever reason,
feelings of
pride,
insecurity.
toxic masculinity. Maybe they're dealing with these issues and they don't want to admit it. Whatever the case may be, they would just rather beat people down and make them feel like shit.
Yeah. Like I hate the fact, I won't drop like a name, but I ended up getting like a private message on Twitter once, um not too terribly long ago, like not more than about 4 or 5 months ago, of people literally, this person literally saying that like I was stupid for giving like Fiona Apple and Charlie XCX positive reviews. And like, how much of a sexist do you have to be that to just feel that way? Like,
Just
I appreciate if you disagree with an opinion or an album, but if your reason for not wanting me to give Fiona Apple a positive review is it's not metal or she's a woman, you need to get your priorities in check. Holy
yeah,
shit.
honestly, like that's disgusting. Like that's just stupid.
I still stand by that Fiona
There,
Apple
you
record.
are allowed to have an opinion, but if that opinion stems out of hatred, you suck.
Yeah.
Like
And
legitimate,
like,
true hatred.
defend your opinion. Like that's another thing I said in the poser video. Like, defend your opinion. If you have a genuine reason for liking something, talk about it. Tell people why you feel that way. But if your sole reason is you're inferior to me because you like something I don't, or dislike something I like, then that's not an opinion. that's
Yeah.
that's not an opinion.
And honestly, I feel bad for those people too, because it's clear to me that they're not comfortable in general. They're like I don't know these people. I won't say they have a mental illness or whatever. That's not fair. That's not right. But that's also not a normal reaction for people to have. It's just not. You know?
Yeah, it's
Like it's
it
not
goes to show
normal.
that there's something deeper going on there than just like simple. There has to be something more going on there.
Like
Like
it is not
you don't just wake up and say I'm gonna be a dick because this person likes an album. That has to be already in you.
Oh yeah. Like it is it's just it's not normal to comment continuously on videos and go, whatever, you're gay, you're whatever, you're this. Like that's not you went out of your way to do this, dude. What's wrong?
Yeah.
What's
You're
happening?
taking time away that you could listen to your music. If you think your musical taste is so, important and so much higher, spend the time listening to whatever you like. Or
Mm-hmm.
go on, like I said, go in an echo chamber. Go find a forum. I'm sure you can find a grouping of people who agree with you. If you solely believe that raw primal black metal is the only genre and it's only the true cult shit and you have to listen to that or you're a poser, Go find a forum and just talk to people who agree with you.
Absolutely.
There's no shortage on the internet of people who agree with you.
Why would you go out of your way to hurt somebody? Like, how heartless can you be? Just go listen to your music.
Yeah, if someone likes a band that is considered that, like, I personally don't like, or that a lot of people don't like a comparison that I drew in that is like, even though I'm not even a big fan of them, but are you really going to go out of your way for everyone that reviewed, like, there was this person that was going to every single review of Infinite Annihilator's last record, The Battle of Yaldabaoth, and just commenting how stupid it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, Infinite Annihilator, they're kind of dumb. I get why people might not like them. I personally like some of their music. If you don't, that's perfectly fine, but why go out of your way just because you dislike that to just, yeah. How's that constructive? And there's nothing constructive about the comment. It's different if they were to go and be like, wasn't really feeling this, this band isn't something that I really like. I'm not a big fan of how they construct sound. I think they sound a little bit too staticky or too over the top, and I'm just not a big fan of how, like, cleanly produced it is in the vocals. That's a lot different than just being like, this is stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's honestly, like, when if I go to someone's video and I disagree with them, my basic almost instinct is just go, hey man, it's not for me, but I can appreciate where you're coming from, whatever. I gain enough. I think it's perfectly fine to have a healthy debate if you want to,
Absolutely.
That's fine. But when it gets to the point where you're just
have a comment chain.
Yeah, but when it gets to the point where you're just, like, attacking people because your precious opinion has been infringed upon, like, grow up, deal with it, move on.
Yeah.
Like, there are lots of people.
Not gonna be anything. It's not constructive.
No, like, there are lots of people that gave me fucking shit for talking smack about Static X. I could have made a video about it. I could have responded to every comment. I could have gone to other more positive reviews and told them they were full of shit.
You would have never gained anything from that. It just would have taken you down and made worse.
Exactly.
Like, you would have felt worse.
Like, I don't like the record. You
did.
That
gives food for the trolls. Mm-hmm. Because you gave them the attention that they crave. Because why else would you go out of your way to do that if you didn't want attention?
And it's just not healthy for me at this point. Like, it's just like, okay, I've wasted all of this time talking smack about Static X. What have I gained? What have I done? Like, it's just not a healthy mindset and approach to get into. To anyone out there doing that, since we're on that note, to anyone out there just, I was in your shoes. I was a little edgy, little elitist in college. I only listened to thrash and death and grind, and I didn't care about anything else. So trust me, I've heard all the arguments because I made those arguments. Just deal with it. You don't have to like prog, you don't have to like pop, but you do have to deal with it.
I think that is a fucking amazing way to put it. Like, I know those arguments because I made those arguments.
Yeah. Don't lecture me about, it's not metal. I know, because I made those arguments. I've heard them all before. Don't start.
You've heard the talking points.
Like,
they have no ground to stand on.
Just deal with it. You'll feel better about yourself. It's that simple. Like, you will, almost immediately. By simply shutting down and tuning it out and just enjoying the music that you like for the reasons that you like it. It's easier to enjoy something for what it is than to hate something for what it isn't. Or the other way around.
Absolutely.
It's better to enjoy something for what it is than to hate something for what it isn't. That's a better analogy.
I will say I appreciate anyone that's still here. It might be time to wrap it up in the sense of I think we've been going over an hour.
It has been an hour.
Holy shit.
I got some final thoughts about mental health and heavy metal and their unique relationship.
Let people enjoy what they enjoy as long as they're not being harmful to other people or are pushing a narrative or agenda that is clearly intended to harm other people, degrade or demean other people, or incite some sort of violence directly. Metal as a whole is not an aggressive form of music in the sense of making people be influenced to do that. I think you have to have something inside of you that gives you the predisposition to be aggressive, to be violent, and the music only amplifies that feeling and intensity. But there are countless thousands of people that have been saved, helped, gotten through some times, and potentially saved from killing themselves, saved from shooting up a school, saved from doing something terrible, just for being able to find a piece of music as an art form that they have related to, metal or not. And boiling it down to metal is in a vacuum, pigeonholing it into this aggressive, evil style that makes people be violent, is so one single-minded as an ideology that I understand why the media might want to sell that agenda, because it's so much easier to just sell that as opposed to look it straight in the eye and say, we need to look at the issues, we need to examine the root cause, we need to figure out what's going on and why these people are acting this way. Just try to break the stigmatism, talk to people that might need it, try to get help if you need it, and at the end of the day, metal is not what needs to be looked at in terms of major mental health issues. And if that is the thing that we're going to focus on, we need to get our fucking priorities in check, because there is so much more dealing with this generation, the past generations, and all generations that definitely need to be worked on and need to be looked at past listening to Napalm Death and putting your fist in the air. Like that's how I feel about it. Like,
holy fuck, next time let's open with that. My god. Wow. Did you write that down?
No.
Wow.
I'm my ass is unscripted, man.
You have a future as a public speaker. That was amazing.
Thank you.
I can picture you in a suit, like State of the Union. Yeah, folks, I don't really have much else to add that I haven't already said, that Jay hasn't already said. Heavy metal is... It's more than just riffs. It's more than a bunch of dudes headbanging and throwing beer cans in the air. It is a form of expression, and it is art. And yes, it can have negative consequences, cough, cough, burzum, but it can also have positive consequences, and it can be very helpful and useful and constructive. I think it's important to remember what an artist stands for, rather than simply for what they say in their music. And I think it's important to acknowledge that whatever issues we may see from music don't necessarily come from music. They come from how we treat mental health as a society. It's like those kids didn't shoot a school because they listened to Marilyn Manson. They shot the school because, you know, they were fucked up kids and they needed help and they didn't get help. That's what it comes down to. And if you're in a situation...
They wanted to shoot up a school.
Exactly. If you're in a situation where you think you're on the verge of doing something dangerous, if you're in a dark place, you know, obviously metal helps, but get help. It really is that simple. Yeah. Please don't be afraid to speak out and to speak up and to continue to explore music. And to the elitists that would argue that we're full of shit, we're overreacting, the math says otherwise. So, like... You can't argue with math. You can argue with me.
Suicide rates going up.
Yeah.
Because of the depression of the pandemic.
You can argue with me all you want.
Losing their lives, divorces.
Like you can argue with me and Jay all you want. You can't argue with math. At the end of the day, people, you got to do what feels right for you.
Exactly. Like the facts are there, the numbers are there. There are more suicides than ever, more cases of depression than ever, and sweeping that under the rug is people need to just hold themselves up by their bootstraps and keep a stiff upper lip. And that ain't working anymore.
And don't let anyone give you shit for fucking, like, oh, King Diamond saved my life, Bring Me the Horizon saved my life, AC/DC saved my life. Don't let anyone give you shit for that. That's a real connection that you've made with that band, and obviously not everyone's going to agree with you, but that doesn't mean you have to sit there and listen to bullshit. Like, don't let anyone rob you of that.
You're no less of a man or woman, and you have no less pride for speaking out about issues or trying to get help either through therapy, medication, talking to someone, or just expressing your feelings through a positive way. That's reinforcement, that's encouragement, and you can save yourself from being a statistic if you just understand that there are people out there that are going to listen to you, hear you out, and try to reach out a helping hand. Because for all the dicks, there are plenty of people that take it seriously and that genuinely care. And writing it off as being edgy or being, you know, emo or being this or that, there are so many people that could benefit from just being heard out at the end of the day.
Choose love. Choose compassion. Choose understanding, respect, and patience. That's what it comes down to.
Activists. We need to just go. We need to make a march.
Yeah.
Metal march. Can we make a metal march? Let's
call
get
up
the
some
boys
people.
together. Let's pull Cover Killer Nation and Count Blaggerth out of the grave. Let's get Chanel up in here.
I'm down. Hell
Go on a
yeah.
metal march.
That's what this is what this feels like. I feel like I'm running for president at this point. We need to choose love, not compassion. We need to choose love and compassion.
You Joe Biden.
Yeah, I'm Joe Biden. Oh God, who's the metal Trump? If I'm Joe Biden, would that be hipster black metal?
Holy shit! No, it'd be I don't want to name. I feel like I can name drop because swapped accounts, but it'd probably be fucking Do you remember Underground Metal Elitist?
Oh yes,
Probably
I do.
Him. Fucking Chris. It'd be Chris.
God,
it'd be
yeah.
Chris. This
Yeah,
pretentious ass
that
thinking
would be
the head of
him.
everyone. That would be him.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah, that sounds about right. But hey folks, if the underground metal gamer, whatever he's going by nowadays, if he is listening, man, just, you do you, man. I don't know.
Hope you're doing.
I legitimately do hope he's doing okay. I don't wish any harm upon him. He wishes harm upon me from what
He's pretty,
you know.
He's pretty much up to like the same antics, and I disagree with his approach, but I mean,
I don't wish any harm upon him, He wishes harm upon me because I had the audacity to say that Death Heaven was a band that existed, but that's his prerogative.
Like I genuinely don't want to get too much into him, but like there was times when he sent threats my way.
Yeah, I got a couple as well. I remember last year I wanted to do a video where
Ditto.
I had a bunch of people literally contributing their favorite album of the year, and I reached out to them. And I said, well, I want to make sure no one's talking about the same album, so you should know that these albums are picked. And one best albums of the decade, that's what it was. And I told him Sunbather's been picked, so that's off the list. And he said, who picked it? I went, I actually did. And he lost his mind. Like, it was as if I had genuinely offended him. And that, ladies and gentlemen, goes back to kind of what we were talking about before. The elitist mentality, it's dangerous and unhealthy. You gain nothing.
Really is, just to get locked into that feeling of like I'm superior. Like I genuinely wanted to do a video just I don't want to say exposing, but just I guess I had a lot of evidence and a lot of screenshots and a lot of recordings, and I feel like Wyatt took care of that. Like I feel like Wyatt took really good care of that whole situation.
He
there was no more
quite
that needed
perfectly
to be said.
did.
And there were other people. There were other people that were doing videos, but Wyatt's like kind of put the nail in the coffin, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And it just showed what kind of person he was in the comments of just being aggressive at everyone on that video.
Yeah, just again, like don't be the elitist, don't be the gatekeeper, don't be the guy who locks himself away, don't be the underground metal gamer. Choose love, choose compassion, choose patience and understanding.
Be the Metal Meltdown.
Be the Metal Melt. Be Jay Morris the review guy. That's our ticket. 2024. Jay Morris and Metal Meltdown. Yeah. I'm not even American. I'm gonna get in there.
I'm not even old enough to be a president.
Neither of us would be, actually. Screw it. That's how progressive our platform's gonna be. We're gonna make a lot of changes.
Yeah, we're lowering the limit.
Lowering the limit, raising standards.
I just wanted to let you know. Like this is everything I thought it'd be in terms of just. I knew there'd be an energy to the discussion. Like you're honestly like the most cerebral person in the niche in terms of just thought-provoking shit, and I was really excited for this, and I just thank you for finally setting this up. Honestly, like I'm glad we were able to.
Aw, thank you for being here. I'm happy we finally did this. Here's hoping it doesn't take another year to talk about whatever the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, have me back on.
Hell yeah! Oh shit! Didn't we say we were gonna do something else too?
Yeah, probably something for mine, depending. Yeah, breaking down breakdowns.
Oh boy, that's breakdowns.
That's a breakdown.
Music can't have a breakdown. I'll give you all a little sneak peek as to what that conversation's gonna be about. All music has breakdowns, deal with it.
Yeah, disco has breakdowns, punk has breakdowns, country has breakdowns. Like, just because you're literally like, bruh, Can that drummer play anything but half notes? Holy shit.
I listen to real music like Stork Box. You've probably never heard of them. They're a Norwegian symphonic black metal band. They only ever had one album. It was pressed on a potato. You're a poser.
Yeah, it was recorded up in the caves of Norway.
Yeah.
It's on a key, dude.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool, man. Varg's uncle performed on the record. That's how black metal it is.
Yeah, you listen to Asking Alexandria. I only listen to Dimmu Borgir.
No, that's too mainstream. You gotta get to the point where you're making up band names.
Gotta get more like what.
I only listen to Decapitated Horsefuck. You know, real metal. Oh, you've never heard of it? That's probably because you're a poser.
Yeah.
Not like me. I have a big brain and a big penis.
Yeah, I'm just, you're inferior to me. I sit and drink Monster Energy drinks from my basement, and I smell like Cheeto dust. You cannot hope to ascertain the elevated mindset that I have for listening to what I listen to, you poser.
Fucking honestly. I like how we were about to end on such a compassionate note, and now it's just like
choose
neck
love,
beards.
choose love and be nice to people. Us right after calls out another YouTube to make fun of elitists.
Oh, fuck them. They want to argue, they want to bitch and moan, whatever. Let them. I don't care. We've made it clear. We love everyone. We just can't stand elitist bullshit.
Yeah, if you're an elitist, cool. Just be nice about it.
Yeah,
like if you genuinely are like a super. If you're a person that just really feels like music should be one way, feel free. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah, mind your own business. That's what you want. You want then practice what you preach, dude. Practice what you preach. Shut up. Stick to your shit.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're officially done with mental health and heavy metal. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Jay, for being here.
Absolutely, it was awesome.
It was awesome. Y'all press subscribe on my channel if you haven't already. Do the same on his if you haven't already. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day. We love you. Stay safe.